Creepers left and right, buzz like crazy. Everybody's trying to stimulate it. Spiders in the mirror and feel this can't be right. Back to the scene of a Friday night, to a blessed collision, still frozen tight. Spear drinkers, Cupid and the sound of her first chime. And why did you argue? We're dreaming of those eyes, the best part of my life. And when we make love, babe, don't make a sound, the clock won't turn around. Ooh, you turn around with 1,000 little fires. And ooh, your siren call is spreading. Slowing things down when I wanted to race, catching up again when you try to chase. Feels like we're playing space. You always find a way to make up, right? Even when we're such a fly, even when tensions run high, you gotta soften up your sleeves, girl. I'll never.
Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, welcome back to another vlog, and yeah, so, hi, thank you for joining me. Today I just started a new book. Today is Tuesday, and so I really want to vlog about it because I have a feeling that I'm gonna have a lot to say about it, in a good way. So the book that I just started is The Siren by Tiffany Reitz. I don't know how to say her name, I'm sorry. And this is a book that came up on my radar early last year, when I was watching somebody's stories and they were talking, it was like, I don't even remember who it was, but they were saying, what's an unpopular romance book opinion that you have? And somebody said, the original Sinner series is better than the Priest series by Sierra Simone. And I love Priest by Sierra Simone. I haven't finished the series, mostly because to me, I thought Priest was just fantastic. All of that being said, I think one of the main things that I love so much about Priest is his internal struggle with his faith. And, you know, that part was just so intriguing to me, and the way that that was so awesomely paralleled and coordinated with his romantic and sexual desires, I just found absolutely fascinating. I know that I think most people go to Priest for the taboo element and how spicy it is, but that was the part that made that book work for me. Not the spicy taboo element, but the internal part of Father Bell and his conflicted feelings about having desires for this woman, having feelings for her, and being a Catholic priest and his very complicated thoughts and feelings with religion that I feel like is extremely relatable if you have ever also maybe had feelings like that yourself. You know, like faith, questioning, things like that. What in the world? I cannot talk today. My thoughts are good in my brain, and then they're not good when they come out of my mouth. But you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So as soon as I heard that, I was very intrigued with this book, and I went to look it up, and I looked it up on Goodreads, and one of the first reviews that I saw was one by Courtney Milan that was flagged for spoilers. I did read it. I haven't read it since then, so I've kind of forgotten major plot points of it, but her review sold me on this book. It was so thoughtful, it was so interesting, and it really had a lot of things in it that made this book really appeal to me. So it was sitting on like my want to read mind TBR for a long time, and then the audiobook popped up in an Audible sale, so I grabbed it, and it's just been sitting there waiting for me to be in the right mood, because I feel like this is a book that has heavy themes, and I think that there may even be, I believe it has a happily ever after, but I think that it's it's maybe a complicated one. So, you know, in my last vlog, I was like, I really want a comfort read, and then what do I pick up? I pick up this one that I think is going to probably be dark, but not in the typical dark way. So, all I really know about this book, I'm on chapter 3 at this point, and I am very intrigued. The interesting thing about how this book sets up is that the first chapter is from a man's point of view. He's an editor of this big publishing house. He edits literary fiction, so he's definitely a little bit highbrow and looks down his nose on romance and erotica, and his publisher that he works for, they're sort of going through financial struggles, and they want to acquire this author who is doing phenomenally well, but she's an erotica author. And so the editor is immediately like, I don't want to work with her, I don't want to edit pornography. And there's this moment between him and the publishing head guy who's like, it's not pornography, it's erotica. So I just feel like this is such an interesting setup. So he goes to work with the author, and I'm right at the part where they've just met, and she is just this little short blonde woman, very petite. You know, he has this moment where she opens the door. Actually, her assistant opens the door. But when he first sees her, he's thinking she's going to be in like red leather with like this riding crop. She writes erotica, you know, like stereotypical things that I think men would sometimes think about women who write erotica. And he's like so surprised that she's just this sort of fresh-faced, short, petite blonde woman in pajama pants with ducks on the bottom, you know. And I just find it very carefully done so far. The setup is very, very good. I'm really intrigued with this. I'm assuming it's a romance between him and her as they work through editing her book. And the only other thing I know about it is that he has recently, I think either he's divorced or something heartbreaking happened with his relationship where I believe she left him. So I'm curious about what's going to happen next, and I'm invested. So I'll keep you updated, hopefully, as I'm reading it, so I can have my thoughts be fresh and you can have them fresh. Because that's how I feel like I do my best work. And yeah, I'll keep you updated as I read. I don't know what else I'm going to read this week, but that was just something that I started today, just picked it up, and I was like, ooh, I got to talk about this one. So I'll see you all in a little bit. Hi friends, hello. Okay, I'm about to dye my hair, and so I thought I would talk to you while I'm mixing up my color. I'm not even gonna try and get any B-roll for this hair color job because, hold on. I didn't bring my tripod, so you're literally sitting on my makeup brush container and my face cream. It's fine, it's fine, it's not really fine. Oh my gosh, hold on. Okay, that's a little better. Anyway, I'm not going to try and get any B-roll of me actually dyeing my hair because it's so messy. Like, dyeing your hair is such a messy process, dyeing your hair yourself, especially if you're not like a salon professional. But this red is so freaking messy. Every time I color my hair, it looks like a crime scene, and yeah, so anyway, I've got like a mess here. Okay, so the siren. I almost spilled it again. the going so great. So I'm about 40% into the siren, and truthfully, I've heard a little bit of chatter about how people don't think this is a romance novel, and I'm like, we'll see about that, you know, because I feel like everybody's always trying to redefine what a romance novel is, and as far as I'm concerned, if it has a happily ever after and the romance is like central to the plot, there you go. There's a romance novel for you, you know? But at 40% in, I don't know that I would call it a romance right now because it feels just more like fiction. And honestly, it feels a little bit like literary fiction because we're exploring a lot of different themes and ideas, and there's like a heartbreaking relationship with the heroine, the erotica romance novel writer, and her assistant who like is in love with her, and he's 19. It's not disclosed how old she is, but I'm assuming she's older than one of the other characters. Her editor is like 42 or something like that, and he made a reference somewhere that she's younger than him. So the assistant is in love with her, she is in love with her ex-partner, who was basically her dom. They were in a dom submissive relationship. She is a professional dominatrix, and it's just really a very fascinating character study. And while there has been some moments of like where I felt like maybe a romance is happening with her and the editor, or her and her young assistant, it's not really developed at all. I mean, the editor is struggling because like his wife left him and he's still very much in love with her. And yeah, it's interesting. I am still enjoying it. My interest is sort of waning a little bit. I was hoping we would delve more into like the romantic relationships instead of just character studies. So I don't know. But I do really like the commentary on like romance novels, and there's definitely a delineation or even a definition of what a dark romance is, and that was pretty fascinating. So I do like that part of it, and I like the characters, but I don't feel like it's romancy really at all. So we shall see. Okay, I'm gonna dye my hair. I'll update y'all. You'll see me with fresh hair in the next video. Hello friends, look at my hair. Look at it. It looks so nice, huh? I mean, you know, compliment me, right? Anyway, fresh hair here. It's the next day from when I last updated you, and so interestingly enough, I decided that I needed an audiobook to listen to while I was dyeing my hair that was not, that I could play without listening to headphones in it, you know? Something that was not the topic of the other book I'm listening to. So I picked up Six of Crows for our read-along that we're having, our live show, our book club, later this month, and I just love this book so much. I love everything about this book so much. I love the characters. I love the world building. I think it's such a unique world and magic system, and I also really love the plot in this book. I think that this is such a tightly plotted book and series, the duology. I just love it so much. So I started it and I got several chapters in, and it was just like instantly captivating me and sweeping me away, and I was just like the happiest little... I'm sorry, you're gonna have to put up with me just playing with my hair because I just colored it, so that's just a reality that we're gonna have to face right now. But yeah, so, and then I also wanted to tell you, hopefully I'll be able to include the review for this book in this video, that I am reading Stacy Reed's new book. It comes out at the end of February, The Wolf and the Wildflower. I'm halfway through it. I'm 50% through it right now, and I'm obsessed with it. This has such a unique plot to it, and I don't know that I've ever read anything quite like this, where our heroine she's been, from the time she was born, their situation with her birth is her life was in danger every time she had a child. This is her second child, our heroine, and the husband was adamant that he needed to have a son. He was like, I must have a son, so he was constantly pressuring the wife to have another baby, even though she almost died in childbirth the first time. And so she had such a difficult birth with our heroine, whose name, she goes by Jules, that the midwife was like, you need to tell your husband that she's a boy, because you can't have another baby or you will die. And so like they just go with it. And Jules, you know, for all intents and purposes, presents in society in every way, even among her family, as a man. And it's really interesting because there are a lot of complexities that Jules feels about that. On the one hand, she feels this longing and desire to do all of the other girlish things, like have a season, to be courted and all of those things. But on the other hand, she really enjoys the freedoms that she gets because she is presenting as a man. So it's very unique in that way. And then she also ends up going to university because her father is a psychiatrist, and she is learning and studying along those things too. So they get called in by the Duchess at the time, whose long lost son has just been found after 10 years in the wilderness. Like this, the plot of this book is a bit bonkers, but I'm loving it, truly. So the Duchess thinks that he's mad, and she requires the services of Jules and her dad to go and sort of help him to to see if he's mad and what they can do to make him be actually, because he's the Duke now, the hero, to actually get him to be a member of society, a Duke, and not be shunned from the ton and stuff like that. So they do go do that. Jules and Wolverton, the hero, end up having this insane connection where immediately he talks about how she smells, what she not necessarily what she looks like, but he immediately sees through her disguise that this is actually a woman. And it's just the way Stacey Reid is able to create that feeling of immediate desire to someone in a way that goes like beyond, you know, I think this person is hot, but there's something, the way that Stacey Reid talks about it, it's very much about how she smells, little gestures she has, things he notices about the way she looks that transcend just a hot person into, this is a person that I feel like chemically attracted to on a deep level, to where it's so beautifully well done. So then the rest of the book is them, you know, getting to know each other, and Wolverton, the Duke, he does not want anyone around him except for Jules. And it's just like, it's so good, you guys. Like, I don't want to say too much to spoil it, but it has a very unique setup. I adore it so freaking much. I think it's just fantastic, and I will be shocked if this is not 5-star. Like, I could see this being a 6-star. I'm going to say that right now. It's so good. Okay, and then, wouldn't you know, today is the day that Kennedy Ryan's Audible novella was released. So, of course, when you're reading 3 books, why not start another one? So I'm also listening to that. So yeah, those are the things I'm reading. I just thought I would update you. And I'll come back. I will probably come back with the review of Kennedy Ryan's novella first, because that's the one I'm currently listening to, because it's super short and I'm already halfway through it. So yeah, I'll update you. For sure, I will get back to The Sinner. I'm going to continue talking about The Sinner, but we're going to do Kennedy Ryan first, and then depending on how much I'm able to listen during the day versus how much I'm reading at night when I can't sleep, then I'll review either the Stacey Reid or the Siren next. But I'll keep you updated with my reading and thoughts. Thank you for coming along. Hello, friends. Okay, so we're back in my truck again. Sorry, not sorry, but weird reflections from the sun. Anyway, this is just my filming studio now. Who needs bookshelves, right? Who needs bookshelves when you've got a water bottle and as your tripod and a dashboard? I'm just joking. Anyway, the light in here actually is pretty good. Okay. So I did finish the Kennedy Ryan novella, and I just wanted to update you really quickly. This isn't the type of novella or review that's really going to go in depth. I think that if you are approaching this and you're wanting a full experience of Kennedy Ryan, you're probably going to be disappointed. But if you approach this as this is just a snippet in these characters' lives where you just get a taste of the romance, then I think you'll be happy. So I give this book 5 stars. It is only available on Audible. It is narrated by the absolutely amazing Jacoby Diem and Wesley Siobhan, and I loved it. Honestly, those narrators are so good that I actually ended up buying another audiobook set that Jacoby Diem narrates, which I'm very, very excited. This is a new to me author. I just picked this one up. It was bundled on Audible, and I just, honestly, the man's voice, I could listen to him all day long. Just okay. But the book is basically about these two, you know, our hero and heroine. They knew each other in college. They had a kiss that seared itself into their memories, and then things happened that sort of tore them apart, so that they could not really have a chance to have a go at their relationship. Years pass. He ends up becoming this very well-known journalist who travels the world, covers all these hard-hitting topics. She ends up becoming sort of like America's Sweetheart morning show type of reporter, and he comes back to his college university where he's going to be speaking, and his daughter is the homecoming queen and all this other stuff, and the heroine gets the opportunity to interview him. So that's sort of their second meet cute, and I just really liked it because these two are in their 40s. They're like 41, And I love this type of setup where it's like a second chance romance where the first, it was just a miss. Something happened where it didn't quite, it was bad timing. I think this is a really good example of a romance that is right person, wrong time. And I just really enjoyed it. It's very short. Did I want more? Absolutely, right? That's the thing that I found with all of Kennedy Ryan's novellas is they're always just an absolute delight, just a treat to the senses to read her writing. But I do always want more, but I don't think that's necessarily a downfall. I think that is the marker of a good story and a good writer. So I did really enjoy this. 5 stars. Just don't go into it expecting you're going to get a real in-depth, full-on Kennedy Ryan book, because you're not going to. So, okay, so now my priority for today is to finish The Sinner. Yesterday I did the Kennedy Ryan audio novella, and then I also was kind of listening to Six of Crows again, which I don't know that I'm going to review. I think I may do I think I might do an individual, I think I may do just a sit-down video reviewing Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, only because I feel like I have a lot to say, and they really mean a lot to me. I think there's sort of like an ocean to unpack in those books, but I don't think this vlog is going to be where I cover them. I also don't know that I'll finish Six of Crows for this video. Anyway, The Siren, did I say The Sinner? I may have said The Sinner. The Siren is what I'm focusing on right now, and I feel like I'm gonna have a lot to say about this book, truthfully. I am loving it, but I am feeling the grief of the characters' lost loves a lot, and that's making me kind of sad, and that's why I kind of kept going back to Six of Crows. But today we're gonna finish it, and then I will have a review for you once I finish it. So hopefully I'll come back today at the end of the workday to review that. And I am still reading the Stacy Reid as well, but I'm not going to talk about that more until I finish that too. So there's a reading update for you. I'm going to go into the gym. I've got a ton of work to do today, so this is all the time I have for you, my friends. See you soon.
It is time, it's the perfect summer night. Those 3 words are spelled out in your eyes. But before I go on, say something wrong. I just hope and bite my tongue. 'Cause you've been told too many times before. Yeah, you've been told so many times before. So I'm gonna try.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back. Okay, so this morning, it's evening, if you can't tell, the sun is just about to set. This morning I finished The Siren, and I've been like waiting all day to talk to you about it, because I feel like there is so much depth to this book. There's so many layers, there's so much to unpack and talk about, that for once I sort of felt like, am I gonna have anything to say about this? So I gave this book 5 stars, and it's the first book in a 9-part series. So this book technically ends with a happy for now, technically, but it's probably not in the way that you want it to. This is such a complicated relationship dynamic with all of the different people in this. We have Nora, the erotic romance author. We have her editor, Zach, who's having feelings for her, but is still deeply in love with his wife, who was his college student. He was a professor before he started being an editor, but she left him for another man, and he's like grieving that. And then we have Wesley, the 19-year-old assistant to Nora, who is in love with her, deeply in love with her. And she has all of these complicated feelings for Wesley because he's so pure and untainted. And because she's like the #1 dominatrix in the area, she's a switch, she can be a dom or a sub, and she has a lot of power and is very well respected in that way. The only one who tops her is Soren, who is her former lover, who she is still in love with, who is also a sadist, and that plays an entirely separate role in their relationship, and she also has a lot of complicated feelings with that. It's just like there's so much going on here, and there are so many different levels of the relationships and how they feel, and I think that what this book does really, really well is it highlights how complex humans are, especially when it comes to love and relationships, and how there's never a clean-cut, easy answer, or not never, but oftentimes there isn't, you know? And this entire book is so heavily focused on BDSM and sex, like that is a huge part of the book, but it's also not written in a way to be titillating. Like, a lot of the sex scenes in here, they don't read like you would expect erotica to read. Like, I don't feel like that at all. It's just a moving part in the story. Oh my gosh, there are some dark things that happen in here. This book is full of questionable morality. What's black and white like doesn't exist. This isn't a book entirely in shades of gray. It's beautifully written, so beautifully written. Oh my gosh, I loved this book so much. I loved this book so much, and the truly only thing that keeps this book from being a 6-star read for me is what I mentioned earlier, how this author does such a good job of getting you in her characters' heads that when they are experiencing like grief about lost love specifically, she captures that feeling so well, and you are feeling it right along with them. Like, I don't know that I have ever read works from another author who uses such spare prose in another romance author that uses such spare prose in such an effective way to get you to be feeling so much. Like, I was constantly thinking about this book. I was constantly thinking about the characters. I just absolutely loved it. It's not like anything I've ever read before. It's extremely unique, and I thought it was just fantastic. The whole book has a big commentary on power dynamics and power imbalances in relationships, but the thing also that I think it did really well is that it doesn't necessarily point to the obvious one, which is men are usually the ones in a man-woman relationship. The men are the ones who usually have the power, and the women are submissive to them. Like, that's not what she was talking about here at all, because there are a lot of men in this book who are submissive, and Nora is dominant. Like, oh my gosh, I feel like I could think and talk about this book for days and days and days. And I also feel like I'm not doing it justice, but I feel like if you like complicated relationships, really nuanced layers to your characters and the decisions that they're making, nothing in this book is shocking or over the top, but at the same time there are elements to this that are deeply unsettling. You know what I mean? In a way that I think is very, very effective. There's a line early on the book when she's talking about the difference between romance and erotica, and one of them she says is erotica is sex and fear, romance is sex and love. And I was just like, oh, I think I could be paraphrasing that wrong. If I got it wrong, I'll put it on the screen what it actually is. But I was just like, oh my gosh, this is... And so the entire book is playing with that theme of, is this a romance? Are these people falling in love? Or is this actually, like, is this fear that's coming into play here? So, and, like, her ex-lover, Soren, who is the dom, like, literally the most powerful man, everybody, like, goes quiet and almost, like, bends the knee when he walks into the room. Their relationship, you don't get a ton of it in this book, and you know that Nora still loves him. So that begs the question of, is this book even a romance? Because I don't feel like there was a cohesive romance to this book, but at the same time, that's really all it's talking about is human relationships, sex and love and things like that. So it was fantastic. Anyway, Soren and Nora, they don't get a lot of page time, but I know you get more of Soren in the second book, which I actually immediately bought and downloaded the audio, and I've been listening to it because I'm just like, this is, you know, I've said so much in my videos how I really want more books that deal with the nuance of human emotions and the experience of being in love and the complexities, how it's not all black or white, or it's not all like roses. Like, this is that exact type of book, and I just loved it. So interestingly, this book was published in 2012. You've probably heard of it. I feel like it had its heyday for sure. It's very popular on Goodreads. I think it's got something like 26,000 reviews. But 50 Shades of Grey was written in 2011, and this book is BDSM, and I feel like it is one of the most elevated works of romance. I don't know that I would call it erotica. It's not erotica. I guess it technically is a romance, but this is everything that 50 Shades of Grey wishes it was, honestly. This book is just absolute perfection in my eyes. Again, I feel like very hesitant to recommend this because a lot of this book is deeply uncomfortable. Like, this is not a happy romance, this is not a swoony romance. This is really the type of romance that I think comes close to a Pam Godwin, some of her really dark, morally ambiguous books. But you don't get that extreme level of darkness, but you do get all of that moral ambiguity and that question of what is right and wrong in a relationship, in a romantic relationship. And as long as there's consent, like, that's another thing that's done really well in here, is that consent is used perfectly. You know, there's safe words. It's just so freaking good. Oh my gosh, I seriously loved it so much. So if you are okay with sort of having a happy for now ending and having some heartbreak, like, this book is angsty, but it's angsty in the way that I think leans towards like sadness and melancholy, and I just loved it. I loved it so much. So yeah, 5 stars for that one, and I'm probably gonna just binge the whole series, and I am not a series binger, but so I did start the first audiobook was narrated excellently. The second audiobook I don't think has a great narrator. It's a woman. The first one was a man for the whole thing, and I don't love the way she's narrating the characters a ton, but I kind of wish I had bought just the Kindle, but I also know that I don't have time to physically read this because I'm physically reading The Wolf and the Wildflower. I'm 70% of the way through, so I am going to finish that, and then I will wrap this vlog up with my review of this Stacy Reid book. But once again, I just want to say that I will be extremely surprised if this Stacy Reid book is not a 6-star read for me, because I'm just loving it so very much. So yeah, this vlog is shaping up to be pretty great. Some really interesting, some really excellent reads, and I'm going to go continue reading. It's Saturday night, and I'll talk to y'all later. Hello friends, welcome back. It's Sunday, and let's see, scoot over here so I can have a spot to put the picture in. I did finish the Stacy Reid, The Wolf of the Wildflower, and I was absolutely right. This was a 6-star book. I loved this book so much. I think that, you know, I was just sort of perusing the reviews to see what other people had thought of it, and I think, in a way, not surprisingly, there are quite a lot of like 4 stars for this book. I think for a lot of people, the completely bonkers plot is going to throw you off. You know, the plot is bonkers. You know, if you listened to it earlier, it definitely is, and it doesn't necessarily go into a ton of resolution detail for how is Jules going to admit to her parents that are not her parents, her father specifically. Like, what's going to happen when she actually, you know, what's going to happen when people find out she's a woman? Like, how is that going to go down? What's going to happen with her family? What's going to happen with her life? And I do think that, like, that part of the story was very much glossed over pretty quickly. But I'm mentioning that only because I could see that being a stumbling block for people. For me, personally, I was very, very easy. It's super easy for me to overlook all that. And that's entirely because I was so invested in this romance, which goes to my point that I've said about in a lot of my other videos, that if you get me invested in the romance, and one of the ways you do that is by having great characters and great setup, but most importantly, writing those scenes that show me these people have a connection, I can overlook a lot of things, you know, and that's definitely something that I was able to overlook here, is that I truly did not care. Also, I will say that I definitely have a bit of a soft spot for bonkers historical romance plots because I just love them. I think that it's sort of this very amazing, cool hallmark of the subgenre, and I love to see how authors utilize that. I love it when it pops up today, so I feel like I just found that very, very fun. But there's something about this romance specifically involving the setup and how they're put together that just laid the ground for a beautiful romance. And I think that's largely because Jules has no previous experience with romantic feelings, with attraction, with all of the feelings she's having for James are new to her. She's never been in an experience before where she's been able to act on those. You know, everything about her life has been portioned off into this facade of being a man, and so she's never allowed herself to feel that. Also, she is very young, and James also has never experienced that before. You know, he was living in the wilderness for 10 years. He's kind of starved for physical touch and not really being aware of that. And I liked how sometimes Jules would use her background in psychology to sort of talk about, well, this is why you feel the way you do. It was just very interesting. That part was very interesting. But because they both sort of came from these backgrounds where they were, you know, unaware of how romantic relationships work, everything just felt so fresh and new. And it literally, this book is one of the closest books that I have read in a long time where I was able to actually feel that falling in love type of feeling again. And it just was so beautiful. I just loved it. There were so many moments in this book full of these quiet, vulnerable moments where they're sharing feelings, where they're exchanging details about their story, and they're sort of like very tentatively talking about how they feel about one another. There's so much about this book that is just deeply, deeply romantic, and I love this so much. I feel like this is a perfect historical romance, but even more, I feel like this is just a perfect romance. This was so swoony. It had such an interesting setup. It had such interesting character development and work. Hi, babies. Come here. Come here. She's not a lapdog on command. She'll climb up here whenever she feels like it. It's her birthday. It's Wanda's birthday. Wanda, come here. It's her birthday on Valentine's Day. She'll be 1 year old. Kazi's birthday is February 22nd. He will be 4. Anyway, sorry for the dog interruption, but this book was just so deeply romantic, in my opinion. It just hit all my bells and whistles for describing how it feels when you see that someone, when you meet that someone who's your person. If you've experienced that before, you know what I'm talking about. And that's such a hard thing to come across in romance. I feel like it usually ends up relying too heavily on attraction and desire. And that is a big part of it, and that is a big part of this book too, is the attraction and desire they feel for each other. But there's something else, something that is difficult to pinpoint. There's just this chemical draw to one another. And it was just perfectly written in here. I just loved it so much. I loved their happily ever after. I loved that when they finally expressed their feelings to each other. I just loved the uniqueness of the plot and the setup and the situations that led to them being in that just felt so fresh and new. I just truly loved everything about this book. I need to get a physical copy because I marked up my ARC so much. I think it comes out February 26th or something like that. It's February 20 something. It's towards the end of the month. But I love Stacey Reid. I've loved nothing that I have read from her has been less than a 5 stars, truly. She's one of those authors, very similar to Kennedy Ryan for me, that just knocks it out of the park every single time. Every single time. Of course, I have books of hers that are my favorites over others, but this one, for me, this one is like top tier. This one is probably this one is in my top 3 for sure, by her. She's just, I love this book so much. I also had this wonderful experience. As soon as I finished this book, I wanted to go back to page 1 and reread it. I wanted to experience it all over again. It was just so freaking good, y'all. It was so beautiful. I loved it. It just, if you want a book that's deeply romantic and you sort of also share a fondness, or else you don't mind, or you kind of want to experience the bonkers plot, you have to pick this up because it was fantastic. This is definitely going in my top books of the year, and I mean, it's the second 6-star book I've read this year, so it's going in there for sure. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope y'all enjoyed it, and you can leave me a birthday cake emoji if you want to wish Wanda a happy birthday, because her birthday is more important than Valentine's Day. No, I'm just kidding, but also not. And I'll see y'all in my next video.